Hello and welcome to the second episode of ISA 4220 presentations. I'm Patrick White and we will be discussing AppArmor and HTTPS within Windows Server 2012 and the Ubuntu Server 17.1. So let's get into it. AppArmor, what is it? It is the Linux kernel security module which utilizes mandatory access controls. And these mandatory access controls actually supplement the traditional Unix discretionary access control model, and it allows the system administrator to restrict program capabilities with per program profiles. These will enable profiles to allow capabilities such as network access, raw socket access, and permission to read, write, or execute files on matching paths. So what's a profile? What are these profiles that AppArmor creates? Well, they are security policies basically for each application or service within your server, and they completely define what system resources individual applications can access and with what privileges. So more on AppArmor. It is basically security through minimization of privileges. So if somebody is able to infiltrate your system and breach it, and the security policies for the applications and services generated and controlled through the AppArmor application will minimize the resources and controls that the hacker or attacker actually has access to. So by targeting it at the application level, it basically gives controls for everyone, except for obviously the person who has access to those controls. So AppArmor is actually offered in part as an alternative to SE Linux. Unlike SE Linux, AppArmor works with file paths, where SE Linux works on applying labels to files. AppArmor is generally less complex and easier for the average user to learn than SE Linux, and AppArmor may also require fewer modifications to work with existing systems. So overall, AppArmor, it's going to be generally easier to use than SE Linux, and you'll see why. So another thing about AppArmor is that it is the only thing available on the Debian and Ubuntu kernels. They don't have access to the SE Linux. So AppArmor is also a command line interface. It doesn't have the GUI interface, the graphical interface. This makes it a little more complicated to learn some of the commands, but once you figure out what all the commands are and how to utilize them, it's actually very useful. So what are some hardening practices with AppArmor? Well, one of the things that you want to do initially after you install AppArmor is to reboot after installation. This will just make sure that all of the programs and services that we're running can now be properly aligned with this AppArmor starting and opening. You want to also learn and utilize the AppArmor commands. This will obviously be how you use AppArmor, the command line. So let's just go over a few basic commands for AppArmor. The first command being AA status. This will display a list of policies in use as well as which ones are in complain or enforce mode. And complain and enforce mode, basically the thing you need to know about those is complain mode is for debugging purposes, and enforce will basically be for real-time live protection. AA unconfined. This will display a list of applications and services with open network ports that do not have AppArmor protection enabled. This is an important command that allows the administrator or the user to see exactly what are the most vulnerable applications or services. They have no profiles, they have no security profiles, so they have the basic discretionary controls. The AA AutoDep command will attempt to generate a profile for an application or service. This can be useful, but generally you're going to have to go in and fine-tune that profile a bit more. It's just because the AutoDep command, it's rarely general on how it creates the profile. The AA logprof command, this is a log analyzer that can show access errors and automatically add new rules to a profile, which is very helpful in understanding why access errors might be happening. Continuing on with HTTPS. This is Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. It is basically the same as HTTP, except the communication protocol is encrypted using the transport layer security, formerly the secure sockets layer. The purpose of HTTPS is to authenticate and access the accessed website and protect the privacy and integrity of the exchanged data by encrypting the actual data itself. Hardening practices with HTTPS include server setup. You want to make sure that your server allows the HTTPS connections, and initially when you do this you have to create a public key certificate, and this is very easy. Let's Encrypt is a free and automated certification process, came out in 2016, and you're basically just want to get your key authenticated through that. The thing with HTTPS is you can use it as an access control basically within the server by setting up the server traffic so that only HTTPS traffic can utilize the server itself. Will allow you to secure it. Doing other things such as redirecting unencrypted traffic to HTTPS will allow administrators to issue a permanent redirect. Other things such as enabling the HTTP strict transport security. This affects the HTTP headers and will secure them even further. So let's see, references. Yeah, so that's about it. References here, and that will do it for this week's video. I know it's even shorter than the last one, but I really just didn't have the time to record and do it a bunch of times over and over, so I'm gonna have to go with this one.